All right, welcome to another episode of the Local Government Insights Podcast, Modernizing Government Leadership, your source and insight for local government technology. My name is Brendan Middleton, and today we're going to hear the story of how City of El Paso, Texas adjusted its approach to hotel tax compliance that resulted in the discovery and recovery of over $3 million in additional occupancy tax revenue. Our guest on the show today is Edmundo Calderon, Chief Internal Auditor for the City of El Paso. Welcome to the show, Edmundo. It's great to see you again.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So for those listening, short background here, but Edmundo is bringing nearly 30 years experience as an auditor across diverse industries, including financial services, higher education, and clearly local government. So before we get started, Edmundo, I'd love for you to kind of set the stage and just provide a little bit, for our listeners at least, an overview of the makeup of City of El Paso so we kind of understand what we're talking about today and really a little bit more about your role as the Chief Internal Auditor for the city.
Okay. Let's see. I was hired in 2005, so I've been here going on 17 years, being the Chief Internal Auditor for the city/city auditor. So I kind of do it all here for the taxpayers of El Paso. My office here in El Paso, we're independent, and we're created that way by the city charter for the city of El Paso, which is kind of like the state constitution.
Mm-hmm.
For the city constitution for the city. So but they're known as city charters. That's just city talk. And in the city charter, my office is an independent function of city government. I have a dual reporting line. I actually report to the city council and to the city manager of El Paso. I'm one of the few in the United States that has that kind of setup. So I have a dual reporting line. So it kind of helps me get my job done, and pretty much everybody lets me do my thing, and they just live on the results. We have a budget, an annual budget, a little over $1 billion. We have over 6,000 employees and about 34 different city departments that I'm responsible for auditing. And one of the newest things I got, which about 2015, was to start looking at the hot tax for the city of El Paso. So I've transformed into a revenue auditor from an internal auditor. So kind of we're a dual hat.
That's perfect. And that's a great segue because what we're here to talk about today is hotel occupancy tax, obviously. So could you just give us a quick overview of like the makeup of the hotel community in El Paso, what it's like, how is it trending, and really like more specifically as you get into that, what regarding tax collection, like what are the current tax levies on hotels, and as the auditor, like how do you go about ensuring compliance and administration of this revenue stream?
Okay, right now here in the city of El Paso, depending on the hotel, so it can vary by one or two hotels a year, but we have 107 hotels now here in the city of El Paso. We're the Interstate 10 dissects El Paso right through the middle, and we're at a halfway point between Dallas or San Antonio
Mm-hmm.
and Phoenix. So we're kind of right in the middle. So people that are traveling on I-10, they usually stop here for the night because this is the midpoint. So they'll stop here. Our hotel tax is made up of two major components. First off, the normal hot tax that we use to promote tourism and economic development in El Paso. That's 7%, 7% of the hotel room. Then in addition to that, we now have a 2% venue tax. About 5 years ago, más o menos, we built a big old giant AAA baseball stadium in downtown El Paso. And that is a 2% venue tax there. So that's a total of 9%. So it's just kind of high, but when you include the venue tax, it's pretty normal now.
Sure.
For a city our size. So we do that. Back in about, I would say 2012, my office was given the responsibility for conducting these audits. We'll get more into that later, how that happened. And in 2015, we started our relationship with Avenue on helping us with the hot tax because it was getting pretty large project. and I needed help. So the internal audit office, we audit the hotels, and our office of the comptroller actually is responsible for the collection of the tax and, of course, the depositing of tax into the city treasury.
Mhm.
So that's how that works.
Great, and that's kind of the basis for our conversation. Is you mentioned supporting 30 some odd departments, 6,000 employees. Like, you have a large responsibility as an internal auditing team to audit a lot of different things, very diverse. So we chatted before in our pre-show about how you began to address some of the inefficiencies and lack of bandwidth in your office to help ensure complete compliance. And you sort of, based on your initial audits in those early years, you believe there was uncollected revenue out there that was not being remitted back to the city. How did you address that? Could you explain the process you went through to determine like how you would meet that type of challenge?
Well, what happened in 2012, that's when the CFO at the time came to talk to me about, hey, I need some help. Can you help us with the hotel tax? I want to start auditing the hotels. I said, okay, let me look at it. So we started looking at it and we figured out, well, we could do it. So we started auditing the hotels. But then what we found out is it would take us a couple of months, 60 to 90 days to audit a hotel completely based on how we were doing it,
Yeah.
for a hotel tax compliance. With the other departments that I have, the 6,000 employees, I only have 8 auditors. There's 9 of us total. It was big. So I like how you use the word bandwidth. That's pretty good analogy. But with me, it's capacity. And I just didn't have the capacity. With over 100 hotels in El Paso, 9 auditors, it's taking me 60 to 90 days to do an audit. You do the math. It would just be a full-time job for us every day. So I couldn't do it. We were lucky then because I would have to put it into my audit schedule for the year that would get approved by city council. 1 hotel a year, maybe 2.
Wow.
So that would take us, do the math, take us 50 years to do just a whole series of hotels. And I've already been here 17. I'm not doing 50 more. Okay. I got things I want to do, and it's just doing hotel audits wasn't my thing. So in addition to that, we had the collection of the hotels, and what we were finding now is that we had the hotels basically on the honor system. We would send them a bill. Our comptroller's office would send them the form, asking them fill it out and send it back to us with your check. And the hotels would, but we had no confirmation to know if it was true or not. There was no trust and verify in the process. So we were using the numbers deposited with the state comptrollers, the state of Texas. And that was what the comptrollers was using that as a check figure. Okay, well, we were on the honor system. And so we decided to look into things. So we ended up getting a new city manager right around 2014, early part of 2015. I'm just, beating on his desk, telling him, I need some help. I need to do this. And he goes, well, how are you doing it? And I told him how we were doing it. He goes, well, why don't you have a service? Where I came from before, we used outside companies to help. And I says, well, now you're talking my language. So we put an RFP together, and well, actually, it was an RFQ. No, an RFP. RFQ qualifications. We weren't looking at dollars. I was looking at skills. So we put an RFQ out, and that's how my relationship began with Avenue, based on that first one, that first RFQ, and we've been hitting it hard ever since. You've already heard our story.
Yeah.
In 6 years, we've increased collections, not only with the audit results, but also with the delinquency identification. We've added an extra $3 million to the city treasury to
That's
help
great.
with different activities.
Yeah. So I'd love to dive one layer deeper here and talk about how we get from 50 years to 5 years, because I want you to touch on that, how you're auditing. but the process really, like, let's get into the weeds just a little bit for just a second. Like, I like to discuss both solutions if we have a moment here, like the audit component first. Like, could you walk us through the process that Avenue takes when auditing the hotels in El Paso, maybe frequency, like how do they go about doing that?
Okay, first off, Brennan, what we did, and I like to tell people this, I tell all my counterparts, all the other city auditors I talk to, we didn't outsource this. This is not an outsource. We didn't, and that was my plan of attack, as you might say. We co-sourced it,
Right.
okay, which is a whole different term, right? Not
Mhm.
outsource it, we co-sourced it. So we partnered up with Avenue. So what we do on the audit side, because we got the audit side and we got the collection side. On the audit side, we started looking at the hotels. So I actually do the risk assessment for the hotels. We determine which hotels are high risk, which ones should be reviewed. If
Mhm.
we start seeing indications, maybe there are some issues over here we need to take care of, we'll put them on there. So we do the risk assessment here, and every year the plan I've put together is we do 20 hotels a year. That guarantees me that every hotel in the city of El Paso will be visited at least once every 5 years for our hotel audit, for a
Wow.
hot audit. And guess what? The Hotel Motel Association in El Paso, they're okay with it. They were fine with it because they saw how fair it was.
Yep.
And so I pick them. I'm going to tell you, I pick which 20 hotels. My staff helps me out with a risk assessment. We go through our selection process. We select the 20 hotels. Then we send that over to the Avenue staff, and they begin putting their stuff together. And then we send out the notification letters to the 20 hotels for that year. And we call them rounds. So we've already done 6 rounds. We should cut them by year, but I like rounds. So
Mhm.
um, we've done that. So Avenue creates, we send them the notification letters. I put it on my letterhead and we mail them out to the hotel, let them know, hey, you've been selected for an audit. Be aware that you're going to be contacted from Avenue. There are representatives. We ask you to cooperate with them 100%. And if you have any questions, here's my number and call me directly,
Sure.
not my staff, the hotel owner or managing partner or the local manager will call me. Not all the time, but I have gotten some calls. And then while this is working, Avenue's working on the other side, coordinating the site visit. So we work with Avenue to find that perfect week. You know, that's what we call it, the perfect week. And we find that perfect week when Avenue will send in their team. Varies by auditor that Avenue sends me. They can send me 3, 4, 5 auditors, depending on what they feel they need.
Yep.
And they'll be here for a week. They set up at a local hotel and we attack. I mean, they go after, meet the point, they make their appointments with the hotels and everything gets done in a week. Sometimes it might go over a day or two. It's
Yeah.
rare, but it's happened because of whatever, documentation or it's in a storage shed and they got to get the documentation. But it
Right.
gets done pretty much in a week to 10 days. Let's just put it that way. And then Avenue does the data crunching back at their place. Your auditors go ahead and do it. They crunch the data. They come up with any deficiencies they find, or they tell me which hotels are doing really, really well in meeting their compliance. So when I get the final report from Avenue, I get the hotels that are A plus that are doing their job. They're fully compliant. There's no exceptions.
Right.
And then I get the list of the hotels that they might owe a little additional hot tax based on whatever the Avenue auditors find out. And then we put the letters together and notify the hotel. And then
That's
we help with the billing and then we get into the collection side of the house.
wonderful. So now you're touching every hotel in El Paso at least once every 5 years versus your staff doing it one a year or maybe 1.5 a year, which is phenomenal. Um, so I'm interested to know also on the flip side, like the administration piece, like what are some of the benefits of like you mentioned the comptroller was doing the administration component, but now Avenue is sort of bundled both together. What are some of the benefits of combining the audit function with the administration and remittance of this type of revenue? And maybe explain that process a little bit.
Okay, the admin side of the house, the ended up being the diamond in the rough. I mean, we didn't know what was going to happen there, but we signed up for administrative services with Avenue. I talked to our by that time I'm on the new CFO. Okay, I've been here so long. I'm on my 4th CFO now. Okay, so new CFO comes in. We start talking about it. Avenue, when they presented the request for qualifications, they actually included the admin part of it. So I talked to the CFO at the time and said, look at this service. What do you think of it? And basically what the service was on the admin side was Avenue bills it, they collect it, and then they deposit it into our account, into our bank account. They actually do about wire transfer. And for the sake of keeping everything honest, I'll just put it this way. The amount that we pay Avenue for this service, I could not hire an employee. The service is so economically priced. I mean, I'm not getting cheap service. I think I'm getting very good service, but the service I'm getting, man, well, what I'm paying, maybe I shouldn't even be telling you guys, but you guys have held the price for me all these years.
Yeah.
I get a lot of service for the money. And what really helped us in the admin side of the house, yes, the billing it, the collecting it, getting the money in and then depositing it into the city account. Yeah, that was great. But the diamond that I think we talked about it was the delinquency.
Yeah,
and that's a component we were missing, because Avenue, the staff at Avenue could then tell me, and they send me reports every month. Here are the following hotels have not paid. Although Avenue could not send delinquency notices, that's not in their scope of work, but that's fine. That's in our scope of work.
Yeah.
So I could notify the comptroller's office, because since I'm the city auditor, I'm not allowed to touch cash. Okay, so I cannot touch any cash. That's an independence issue with me. So our comptroller's office, they will then begin the collection activity with the hotel, sending out the notices. Hey, you're past due. You're past due. If it gets to the point that the hotel hasn't paid, we have a process already set up with our city attorney's office. They will send out demand letters to the hotel. If that doesn't work, we go to the stage 3, what I like to call the different stages. The city has a private law firm that we use to help us collect property taxes, and they help us collect franchise fee taxes. It's like actually the law firm's more of a collection agency, but they're a law firm. And we increase their ability. We change their ability based on an amendment to their contract to help us with a hot tax. So by the time it gets to stage 3 with the outside law firm, because then it gets pretty hot and heavy in the collection activity, they go and collect it for us. And of course we have to pay the attorneys, but that's a whole different separate issue. But the beauty of it is we didn't really have that component before we started with Avenue. Because Avenue does an excellent job. And I've told your CEO that, yes, your auditors are awesome. Yes, your administration people are awesome. But where we find the value is that when they tell us which hotel's delinquent. And then if you've ever been involved with collecting accounts receivable, the best time to get on accounts receivable is early.
Yeah.
The older they get, the harder they are to collect. So that's the beauty. Avenue lets us know early, and we can get on it early, and we've been very, very successful in that. So I'm telling you. So part of the $3 million that we've collected in the 6 years, a big chunk of it is from the delinquency side of the house.
That's outstanding. So insight into the data is so powerful. That's why data is so powerful, and the timeliness of it allows you to get on the accounts receivable quickly, so they do not go stale. It almost seems like sort of risk-free approach to compliance and collection of these types of taxes. But I'm also curious if you, through all of this process, like, have you found certain reasons that have led some of these hotels to be non-compliant? And the reason why I'm asking is I think it might be helpful for other government leaders that, have an honor system or may have never done these types of audits before that are listening to this that may not be aware of potential non-compliance. Like, what are some considerations that you found?
Well, the big one right now is COVID, the pandemic. A
Yeah,
lot of the hotels struggled. I know I talked to a lot of the hotel owners, the managing partner, directors, whatever title they had. During COVID, they were having a hard time. They were struggling financially to make ends meet. And, stays were down. Customers were not coming in. And that was a big, big problem back then. Well, it still is, but not as much anymore because the economy is bouncing back. But during the time, we did have some problems with getting some of the hotels to pay. They did pay it. We didn't shut anybody down, but that was
yeah,
because we got on them early
sure.
and we got it. So COVID had a big thing to do with it. Um, because a lot of times El Paso is a big economic shopping community. If you ever look at us on the map, we're at the northern tip of Mexico, and we get a lot of Mexican shoppers that come to El Paso to shop. A lot. I mean, especially right now, this time of year for the holidays. They've opened up the borders, so we're starting to see that. But during the pandemic, the borders were shut down, so it really gave them a shot in the stomach. They were just like, oh man,
Yeah,
it's just hard, but we're getting past it.
excellent. So, with that, I'd like to sort of wrap it up, if you don't mind, with some key takeaways. Like, you evaluated, the current state in which you were auditing. You found out that there potentially were inefficiencies. You moved to a partnership, and you called it not an outsource, but an in-source,
Co-source.
a co-source. Like, what would be some of the key takeaways that you would leave, some of the local government leaders that are listening to this around just auditing and administration of these types of tax revenue?
Okay, this whole process was new to me. Okay, this is something I had never done.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, usually all my audit work, I do the audit work. Okay, that's what I'm trained for.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my profession is. That's what I do. But I had a really good friend of mine with the city of Dallas, and he's the one that told me. He says, "Dude, you're fighting a battle. You need all the soldiers you can get.
Yeah.
Get get these guys to help you get more soldiers on the ground, more boots on the ground." And that's what we did. So we looked at the cost of the service that we were paying Avenue versus the cost of hiring and training an employee. And it was a no-brainer. I mean, the service I was paying for the cost of auditing a hotel, and I don't want to give out any confidential information, but who's ever listening, look at the cost of auditing a hotel per hotel versus the cost of using your auditors to do it. It,
Yeah.
it it's a slam dunk. It's victory all the way around. And that's what we started doing. And when I look at the cost of auditing 20 hotels a year for what I'm getting charged to do it, and the payback I'm getting, the ROI, the return on investment, it's tremendous. It's huge. It's a win-win. And I cannot emphasize that for any other city leader that might be listening. You got to look at it. It makes me look good. I mean, I'm the big hero in El Paso because I'm helping the taxpayer. We're getting more revenue in, and it helps the tax burden on the local taxpayer. So it's been a good program. I'm very, very happy,
Great.
and I'm very, very proud of it. How we did it. Took a lot of work, 6 years
Sure.
worth of work, but we got it done.
And 3 million is a big number. I'm curious, right before we wrap here, are there any special projects or anything the city has been able to do that you know of that has been a cost benefit or a benefit off of the collection of this type of revenue?
I talked earlier about the baseball stadium.
Yeah.
Part of the debt of paying for the construction of the baseball stadium is that 2% venue tax. So by us making sure we're getting our tax, we're able to make the payments on the stadium. And we're on track of hopefully getting that thing paid off a little bit early. But more important, we're getting the payments in on time.
Sure.
Because these audits really have helped us do that. And then plus the other side, when you look at the purpose of the hot tax, what it's used for, some people call it the bed tax. It's used, especially here in Texas, we use it to promote tourism and economic development. So, I can't tell you exactly where every dollar went.
Yeah.
I'm just in charge of finding it and making sure it comes in, and I'm not in charge of spending it. But I know our economic development department and our tourism department, they do their thing on promoting and it just keeps cycling the money and get people to come visit El Paso.
That's great. That's great. Well, look, Edmundo, thanks so much for jumping on. I really appreciate your insight, telling us your story, giving us some feedback and key considerations. I really appreciate it. For all those listening, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Local Government Insights podcast. We really appreciate all the feedback that you guys give and really welcome other government leaders to help share success stories similar to the one you heard today. And as you know, you can reach us at succeed@avenueinsights.com. Please stay tuned for more local government news and insights to come. We really look forward to having you join us next time. Thanks again, Edmundo.
You're welcome.